Looking at our world from a theological perspective. This is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is Saturday, May the 1st, 2021. It is currently 12:26 p.m. Central Time. And yes, I'm still here inside of the sanctuary of Victory Baptist Church located in Ovalo, Texas. I've been here since early this morning. We've been doing hours of live broadcasting, and hopefully, something good has come from everything that I have done so far this morning. Hopefully you've benefited greatly from it, and I've given you much to think about, talk about, and meditate on. But before I go home, I wanted to take some time to give you a Bible study exercise. Really, I have three things I'm trying to accomplish in this live broadcast that you're currently listening to. There are three things I'm trying to accomplish. One, I want to give you a Bible study exercise because it's been a few days since I've given you one, and I always want to balance out. So we started off this morning in the live broadcast, if you were listening. We started this morning by talking about, we did an update about everything, all of those accusations people were making against the Dominion voting system. And we gave an update about that. That kind of gets us into the world of politics, even though I really wanted to put it in the context of the church and spreading false information. But it's still there's a political aspect to it, all right? Then we talked about this crazy story about this pastor who was plagiarizing sermon after sermon after sermon. Okay, we talked about that. That's kind of controversial, talking about what's going on in the church. So whenever I kind of do those kinds of things, I like to balance it out. I like to try to keep a balance here because one of the things I want to do here on the Theology Central podcast is provide you spiritual nourishment, provide you spiritual food, Bible teaching, devotional messages. I want to also try to benefit you that way in your Christian life as well. So I'm always trying to do a number of things. So there are three things I want to do this morning. Number one, I want to balance out what we've covered by giving you a Bible study exercise to get you to spend some time studying the Bible. All right, so I want to do that. Number two, I've been here now a number of hours this morning, and I'm going to go home, then I'm going to get lunch, and then I'm probably going to kind of slide into a Saturday afternoon routine, and guess what that means? That means there's a very good chance I'm going to neglect my own personal time of Bible study or a devotional time of study. There's a very good chance that's going to be neglected. I didn't have one earlier this morning. Now it's afternoon. I try to have a devotional time of study morning, afternoon, evening, and late at night. And so I'm behind. So I'm like, you know what? If I get in the car, when I walk through the front door of my house, I'm just going to start putting bags down, putting everything up, and then I'm going to like, okay, what's for lunch? And that's what I'm going to focus on. So I used to say this all the time, before you feed yourself physically, you need to feed yourself spiritually. So I need to spend some time in God's Word with kind of a devotional study. So you know what? I'm just going to turn on the mic and do that devotional study that I'm getting ready to have with you live on the air. So I want to give you a Bible study exercise. So that means I'm going to do some of the work, and then I'm going to play some of the work before you so that it'll be a Bible study exercise. Number two, I need to have my own devotional time of study. So I'm just going to turn on the microphone and do it live on the air. All right. And then number three, sermon prep. So really, my devotional time this morning is very much a part of my sermon prep for tomorrow. And for members of Victory Baptist Church who may hear this is your sermon prep as well, because I'm trying to help you add content for what we're going to be talking about tomorrow at Victory Baptist Church. So Bible study exercise to balance out everything else we've talked about, my own devotional time of study because I need to feed myself spiritually before I feed myself physically, and number three, sermon prep because it is Saturday, and so I'm trying to get my attention focused on what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. So a lot of things I'm going to try to accomplish over the next few minutes, and I invite you to be a part of it. As always, if you're listening to me live, feel free to say hello. Feel free to add your thoughts, your perspective. And if you're not listening to me live, then feel free to email me whenever you would like, newsif@yahoo.com. All right, now let's begin with a very important question, all right? This is the question that I'm asking myself this morning, or this afternoon. It's afternoon now. This is the question I'm asking myself this afternoon. And I want to ask you to think about this, meditate, and discuss it with other people you know who are Christians. Are you ready? Here we go. How important is hope to your Christian life? If you look at the image I used for this podcast episode, it's the word hope written on a road, right? Like on a highway. And so as you're walking down your spiritual path, you're on your spiritual journey, how important is hope to your Christian life? Now, we talk about how important a lot of things are to your Christian life, right? How important God's word is to your Christian life, how important prayer is, how important, protecting yourself from this and doing this. There's all these things that we talk about. These things are important to your Christian life. But how important is hope to your Christian life? How important is that? How important? Now, the word hope, for me, first and foremost, it makes me think of my sister because my sister's name is Hope. My mother, now there are two, now again, I can't, if you know, my mother died when I was young, so I can't like go back and talk, and my father is dead. I can't talk to anyone to know exactly how this all plays out, but the best of I can remember, my sister was 10 years younger than me. I think it was 10 years younger than me. I can't remember. It was a long, much younger. I think she's 10 years younger than me, if I remember correctly. I know it's numbers. It's things I don't remember very well, and I don't have a close relationship with my sister. So, but far as I remember, there were two things that motivated my mother to name my sister Hope. Number one, because she had her later in life. This was like her last hope to have a child. So hope that way. And because of, there was a character, this is just the truth, all right? This is just the way it is, or I'm just telling you the way it is. There was a soap opera called Days of Our Lives. I think it still comes on the air. And there was a character in there named Hope. I think there was a big storyline at that time. Bo and Hope, I think was their name. I cannot remember. I mean, I didn't watch it. I could care less. But I think it was like a big, like, pop culture phenomenon, Days of Our Lives, and I think it was Bo and Hope. And so my mom used it for that. So Hope, I just know as my sister's name, and I cannot, if I'm just really thinking about it, I can't say that I'm a very hopeful person, right? The concept of hope, the way we typically use it, like that I hope for the best, that I hope for something, I'm very hopeful. I tend to be very cynical. I tend to think it's not going to work out. The fire is not going to be put out. The cancer, the diagnosis is going to come back as positive for cancer. It's going to be terminal. Like I always kind of go more with a negative, cynical approach, not a positive one. Now you can say, well, that's not very Christian of you. Well, I've tried to tell you from the very beginning, I'm a sinner just like you. All right. So I'm not going to come here turn on this microphone and try to pretend something that's not true. I'm a sinner. I've made all kinds of mistakes, and I'm not a very hopeful person. I tend to always think it's not going to work out. And sometimes my wife will say, you borrow trouble. You always borrow. In other words, you don't even know if that's the way it's going to work out. And in a sense, you're borrowing it because you already just assume it's going to work out in the worst way possible. And a lot of that has to do, no excuse, but just being raised in such a messed up situation where, having hope was a foolish thing because things were not going to get better. Things were only going to get worse. And then watching, that my mom died unexpectedly, and I was young, that, it really gives you a cynical view on life. So I would argue from my perspective, and maybe this has been detrimental to my own spiritual journey, if I was to ask myself, am I a hopeful person? I'd be, no, I'm not. So if you ask me, how important is hope to your Christian life? I don't know. Now, that may be that means there's a major defect in my spiritual life. Because I'm not hopeful, then maybe there are some things I'm hopeful about, but just the idea, like, okay, how important, like if you were to ask me, how important is hope to your Christian life? I'd probably look at you like, not very important to mine. because I'm not very hopeful. I think nothing's going to get better. I don't have hope. So is it because I misunderstand? I got a wrong definition of hope? Do I not quite understand what hope is? This is an important subject. So I want you to spend some time this morning meditating on how important you think hope is to your spiritual life. And then what does the Bible have to say in regards to hope? Now, if we go to the book of Romans, I'll show you why I'm talking about this subject, all right? Because we're in the book of Romans here at Victory Baptist Church. We've been working verse by verse through the book of Romans now for a very long time. And if you go to Romans chapter 8, verse 18, there's this very interesting section. I've preached now multiple sermons on it. I did a Bible study exercise on it. I really wanted to spark a lot of conversation about it. It's one of those sections where sometimes as a preacher, you see the section and you're like, this is awesome. This is amazing. Everyone's going to want to talk about it. And then you preach it and then you hear, do you hear that? Listen closely. Listen. Yeah, that's called silence, okay? Nobody seems to care. And it's very discouraging as a pastor. You're like, oh, this is so oh, nobody thinks it's awesome. No one thinks it's great. I am, as a pastor, that's one of the most discouraging parts about being a pastor. Is you get all excited about something, right? You get all excited. Like, you're in your study, you're putting that sermon together and you're like, yeah, I cannot wait to preach it. And then you preach it and then you're looking at everyone's expression and you're like, what don't you get? What don't you think that's amazing? But I'm like that with a lot of things. It drives my wife crazy if we're watching a movie. I'm like, oh, wow. Isn't that crazy? Whoa, that's amazing. Isn't that crazy? Did you see that? And I have these maybe too big of a reaction to everything, right? If I listen to a song, I'm like, oh, wasn't that an amazing lyric? Oh, did you hear the production right there? Did you hear? And everybody's like, it's just a song. It's just a song. I'll be reading a book and I'll be like, oh, wow. And people will be like, it's just a book, man. Just calm down. It's really not that big a deal. It's really not that great a movie. It's really not that great a song. Really wasn't that great of a sermon. So just calm down. So maybe it's me, but when I looked at this section of Romans, I was like, whoa, this is awesome. Everyone's going to think this is amazing. And I don't think anyone really much cared one way or the other. So that's discouraging. But even though no one else cares, I'm still going to tell you it's an amazing section of Scripture, all right? It's still amazing. So let's look at it. Romans chapter 8. Here we are, verse 18. Romans 8:18. For I reckon that the suffering of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. So we have present suffering with future glory, and that future glory is going to be revealed in us. Now, I don't want to preach all my sermon from last week, so I've got to just move forward. Verse 19, for the earnest expectation of the creature waiteth for the manifestation of the sons of God. So here is creation. Creation is waiting with an earnest expectation for the manifestation of the sons of God. So creation is waiting for the manifestation. So we have a present waiting with a future manifestation. And that future manifestation is creation is waiting for the sons of God to be manifest, to be made clear who the sons of God are. The sons of God are, because once the sons of God are revealed, then there can be a new heaven and a new earth. So then creation is currently in a bad situation because it is experiencing all of the results of the fall. All right, verse 20. For creation was made subject to vanity. All of creation was made subject to vanity. There is a sense of meaninglessness, uselessness. There's a situation where, and at one sense that all of creation, there's a vanity, there's just suffering, pain, there is disease, plague, volcanoes, earthquakes, hurricane, disease, all of the things that creation experiences. There's a sense, but it was made subject to vanity. It was made subject to vanity, not willingly. The creation did not choose this. They were subject to it. But what made creation subjected to this vanity? Well, it was not willingly, but by reason of him. We believe that him there is God. God subjected creation to vanity, not according to the will of creation, but according to God. He did so. But he did so, so not willingly, but by reason of him who hath subjected the same in hope. Creation was subjected to vanity, but in hope. In other words, you're subjected to vanity, but with that subjection to vanity, there is hope right there. Let me read this from a number of translations to see how other translations handle this. Romans 8:20. For the creation was subject to frustration, not by its own choice, but by the will of the one who subjected it in hope. Now, the will of the one, that is God. It was his will. Creation did not want to be subjected to vanity, to frustration, but God subjected it to that, but he did so in hope. Next, another translation. Against its will, all creation was subjected to God's curse, but with eager hope. The ESV, for the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it in hope. He subjected it in hope that with the subjection to futility, frustration, to vanity, there is hope connected with it. It's like, here's the vanity, here's the frustration, here's the futility, but here is hope. There's a hope connected with it. The vanity, the frustration is there, but there's a hope. So creation is looking towards this hope. What hope? What is this hope? How important is this hope? It's a very important passage, all right? And then look at verse 20. For the creature, verse 21, all right? Because the creature itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of God. Now, there is a little bit of the idea of hope. There is a little bit of idea. The creature itself, it will be delivered from the bondage of corruption. There is a hope it's looking for. This bondage of corruption will come to an end, and it's going to lead to the glorious liberty of the children of God. All right, so there is something, there's a hope. There's something it's looking forward to. Now, is this just like, I'm hoping for? Oh, I hope it works. Oh, I hope it works. I hope. Is it just like you're almost a wish, or is it a different kind of hope? Well, if you look up the word hope, and that's used in Romans chapter 8, verse, in fact, let me do here. Let's go back to, I'm going to go to the word hope as it's found in the book of Romans, all right? And I'm going to make sure that that's the same word is used here in just a minute. I believe it is. But here is the Greek word. Here is the Greek word. And give me a second here. I'm going to remove the iPad from its case. All right, here we go. All right, here is the Greek word for hope used in Romans. All right, here we go.
Strong's G 1680, elpis, elpis.
Elpis. Elpis. Now, what does this word mean? Okay, well, it's Strong's, it's used 54 times. That's something. It's used 54 times. 53 times it's translated hope. Interesting enough, one time it's translated faith. Faith, hope, do those overlap? Are they linked together? That's interesting. Strong's definition is to anticipate, usually with pleasure, expectation, or confidence, faith and hope. So the hope here doesn't seem like, oh, I wish, oh, I hope. No, it's a confidence. It's an expectation. So creation was subjected to futility and frustration in hope, with a confidence and an expectation that futility will ultimately give away for something different, something better. In fact, the idea that if you're hoping for something, you realize that the current situation is one way, and you're hoping for something that's better. You don't hope for something that's worse. You're always usually hoping for something that's better. So the hope of the Bible is an expectation and a confidence. The outline of biblical usage gives us some ideas here. It's an expectation, so it can be an expectation of evil and fear. So in other words, the word hope here could just be the idea of expecting something. Could be bad, but it's an expectation. It's also used the idea of an expectation of good hope. In the Christian sense, now this is very important, joyful and confident expectation of eternal salvation. Now, how important is it in your Christian life that you can have joyful, a confident expectation of eternal salvation? How important is it for you to have a joyful, confident expectation of eternal salvation? You know, without a shadow of a doubt, of eternal salvation. You know that you are going to experience eternal salvation, where there's going to be no more pain, no more suffering, no more death. How important is that to your Christian life? Now, that is where I can understand hope. I don't have hope in the sense that a confident expectation with joy that whenever I'm facing a circumstance that God is simply going to fix it, make it better, and make it go away. Because I know from reality that that's not the case. I worked in the medical world for 22 years. I've seen people beg, plead, pray, promise God, do everything they can, pleading, praying, and their loved one still dies. The cancer doesn't go away. The diagnosis comes back horrible, terminal. Someone who's, they do not want their military career to come to an end. They're begging. They would even ask me, please pray that that my military career doesn't end because of this injury. And then the medical board comes back. Sorry to inform you, you're medically separated because you're no longer medically qualified to be in the military. And their whole career comes to an end. I've seen them beg and plead. I've seen people try to have hope, a joyous expectation, a confidence, and it doesn't work out. But there's one thing that we can and should, as Christians, have a joyful, confident expectation, and that is in eternal salvation. That's why we got to be very careful when we create a theological system that says, okay, well, you think you're saved, but the only way we know you're saved is if you do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Well, that's not joyful, confident expectation, because I don't know if I'm going to continue to do all of those things. But my joyful, confident expectation in eternal salvation is the fact that I am trusting in an imputed righteousness and the finished work of the eternal Son of God, who died for all of my sins, washed them all away in his blood, and then gave me his perfect righteousness and obedience to my account. That gives me that expectation. So the creation, in a sense, has been subjected to futility. All creation has. But there's an expectation, a hope of an eternal salvation, because all of creation, there will be a new heaven and a new earth. It will all be, in a sense, redeemed and glorified. Now, how important is that confidence to you in your spiritual life? Look, if I don't have hope of eternal salvation, then when I sin, I'll just give up. I'm like, you know what? I embarrassed myself. I hurt the name of Jesus. I was a mess. I messed everything up. Just give up. No, you never give up, because my salvation is not based off of what I do or don't do. It's based off what Christ did. And there is complete and total forgiveness in that. That gives me a sense of hope. That's the kind of hope we need if we're going to advance in our spiritual life. Let's do something here. I'm going to go back. I'm just messed up. Okay, let's go back to 18. Okay, I'm looking at Romans 4:18, where the word hope is used. Let me bring up the word hope here. Okay, here we go. It is used, it's used in Romans 4:18. It's used in Romans 5:2. It's used in Romans 5:4. It's used in Romans 5:5. And it's used in Romans 8:20. All right. So the exact same Greek word is used in Romans 8:20. I wanted to verify that we had the exact same Greek word. The same thing. And a confident, earnest expectation, a confident expectation, a joyous, confident expectation. But it's a hope in eternal salvation. I think sometimes we sell it that, you can have hope in God, that God's going to fix the problem. No. Now, you can have a confident expectation, joyous expectation, that God will work all things. He will work He works all things together for our good, but that's the good of our salvation. That's the good of bringing us closer to him, not in making everything better in your life. How important is that? So let's rephrase the question. How important is a joyous, confident expectation of eternal salvation to your spiritual life? If I didn't have any confidence and an expectation of eternal salvation, I think what would keep me moving forward? Now, some people say, well, the way is a fear of not being saved, a fear of going to hell. But I think fear can only motivate you for so long till you just become discouraged and tired and figure out you're never just going to make it. I think the fact that God saved me by grace alone, through faith alone, because of Christ alone, that God's mercy is new every day and that his grace is sufficient and greater than all of my sin is a more motivating factor than fear of, oh, well, I don't know if I'm saved now because I'm not doing enough good. Hope. How important is hope to your spiritual life? So here's what I want you to do. I want you to find 5 verses in the Bible about hope that you think are super important. They really speak to you. You think they're so important to know. 5 verses. And I would really challenge you to email me what you find at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. 5 verses. Now, here's the thing. It's going to take you a little bit. Here's the reason why. Well, it may not take you a little bit, but do this. Don't do this. Don't just go to the verses you already know about hope. Don't do that. Just really do a scan of all the biblical information about hope. Hope is used 121 times in the King James Version of the Bible. I had to look it up really quick. Hope occurs 121 times. 5 verses that you think are just like, whoa, those you can look them up in the Blue Letter. Look, if you have the Blue Letter Bible app, just download the Blue Letter Bible app, go to the search function, type in hope, and then you can just start scrolling through all of the verses and you can just scan them and you're like, oh, that's a good one. And when you find that good one, write it down. Oh, that's a good one. Write it down and write it down. And just find 5 verses that that really just says something to you about hope. And I want you to take them and really think about how significant hope is to your spiritual life. And then here's the next thing I want you to try to figure out. How can you develop a stronger hope in your Christian life? Look, I'm going to say this. The reason my hope should be completely joyful, confident, with expectation is because my hope of eternal salvation has literally nothing to do with me. I look to the cross of Christ. Now, when I mess up and it's horrible, it's embarrassing, I can hurt people with my failure, but my confidence is in what Christ did, not what I've done or failed to do. And that should continue to motivate me. That should continue to keep me on not giving up. There's a lot of people who are in Christianity, okay, they claim to be within Christianity, and then everything fell apart. They messed up. They destroyed their marriage. They ended up in alcohol. Whatever the case may be, they just messed everything up. And now they don't want anything else to do with Christianity because they're just discouraged and they've just given up. No, your salvation was never based on what you could or couldn't do. It's based on what Christ did. Cling to the cross. Have that joyful, confident expectation of eternal salvation. Have that. That hope will motivate you and keep you moving, because everything else you just want to just give up and say, well, I couldn't live that Christian life out. I kept messing up. Yeah, I know. We all do. Hope is important. There's a lot more I want to do here. I've got the Bible dictionary over there. I want to start looking at some of these verses about hope. Here's Psalm 130, verse 5. I wait for the Lord, my soul doth wait, and his word do I hope. There's a good passage of scripture there. So just find 5 about hope. All right. And then tomorrow, when we're going to work through that section in Romans about hope, because I think it's very, very important. All right. Okay. I'm going to stop right there. I want to do more. I want to do more myself, but if I do too much, then I destroy it from your benefit, right? Because it's a Bible study exercise. So I didn't get as much done for me that I want to, but be looking on theologycentral.net. theologycentral.net in the blog section. I told you in the previous live broadcast that we now have this feature where I can embed podcast right there from the Edify Christian Podcast app. What I'm going to do here in a minute, I'm going to do a search for hope on the Edify Christian Podcast app and see what episodes show up. And then guess what I'm going to do? I may download it and listen to one on the way home. And if I think it's any good, then I will embed it there, and so that you can carry this study further for yourself. Right? There's more I would like to do, but that's what you need to do today. At some time, 5 verses that you think are just really powerful about hope, and send them to me, newsif@yahoo.com. I want to know what you discover, and I want you to answer that question: how important is hope to your spiritual life? But I want you to realize, I think the way we have to understand hope is a joyful, confident expectation of eternal salvation. I think we may need to clarify the way we sometimes understand hope within Christianity. All right, I'll stop right there. Can't wait to hear from you. Please, if you could do us a favor, a couple of things always help us out. If you use the Apple Podcast app, please leave us a 5-star rating. Please write a review. If you don't have an Apple device, please go to theologycentral.net to the review section and leave us a 5-star rating and a review there. And please, someone, I would say I have hope, but I have hope in my eternal salvation. I don't have hope in anybody doing this. I'm begging you, go to theologycentral.net, scroll up, you see the little icon there with the microphone, leave us a voice memo. Please, I want to know if the thing works, okay? It's a feature that's set up now. I want to see if it actually works. So if you could do that, I would greatly appreciate it. All right, I'm going to stop right there. Everyone have a great day. theologycentral.net pod page, be checking the blog section, because if I find something very good, a good discussion on hope, I'm going to embed it there and to add to this discussion that we've had on this Saturday afternoon. All right, I'll end with this. If you are trusting in Christ for your salvation and his finished work, you may not feel it, you may not understand it, but you can have complete, joyful, confident expectation of eternal salvation, because Christ is the one that saves you by what he did, not by what you do. That you can have hope in, the finished work of Christ. That cannot be changed or ever removed, because Christ did it. All right, I'll stop right there. Everyone have a great day. God bless.